All right, let's talk about Linkspreed, because in 2025, they didn't just have a good year, they pretty much reinvented themselves from the ground up. Their own leadership called it a wild year, and today, we're going to dig in and see the architecture of how they pulled it all off.
And no, they were not kidding. That's a direct quote from their end-of-year report. I mean, think about it. How often do you see a corporate summary use a word like wild? It tells you right away that this wasn't just business as usual. Something big, something fundamental had just happened. So that's the big question, right? What were the actual moves, the key innovations that turned them into such a powerhouse? Let's unpack that whole story, and we'll start with the single biggest thing they did all year. Okay, so the main thing to grasp is that 2025 was the year of a massive evolution. Linkspreed went from being just another promising platform, a company with potential, to becoming what the source material calls a full-blown digital powerhouse. That's a huge leap in scale, on, and influence. And at the absolute center of this whole transformation was one gigantic launch, the Linkspreed ecosystem. Now, this wasn't just some new feature. The team saw this digital world where everyone was juggling dozens of different tools, and they decided to build something unified. And they were clear, this was the milestone of the entire year. So what is this ecosystem exactly? Well, the two words to focus on here are holistic and synchronized. The goal wasn't just to have a bunch of tools under one roof. It was to build a single, seamless environment where creators, brands, and developers could all work together in a totally connected way. And here's how they structured it, which is pretty clever. The ecosystem wasn't one single thing. It was made up of 6 distinct but deeply interconnected branches. Each branch served a very specific purpose, but they were all designed to work together as part of that bigger, synchronized world. Understanding this structure is really key to their whole strategy. But a big question remains. How on earth do you power something that ambitious? Well, this wasn't just a simple redesign. It was a complete overhaul of their core technology. And really, it all came down to 2 major innovations that made the whole thing possible. First up is this concept they call social networks as a service, or SNAS. So think of it like this. Before, if you wanted to build a digital community, you had to piece it together manually. With SNAS, their partners could now just deploy a fully formed social environment automatically. The speed and efficiency were on a whole other level. And the so what here is just massive. This automation wasn't just a cool feature, it was a solution to a huge problem. It got rid of all the slow, manual work that was holding back community growth. By just removing those bottlenecks, they basically opened the floodgates for their partners to scale like crazy. And the second piece of the puzzle is something called UID, Universal Integrated Identity. It makes perfect sense, right? If you have 6 different branches in your ecosystem, how do you jump between them without having to log in and out all the time? Well, UID is the answer. It's one single, super secure identity that just works everywhere on the platform. The source uses this metaphor that I think is just perfect. They call UID the heartbeat of our ecosystem, and that really nails it. It's the thing that gives the whole system life, pumping your identity seamlessly and securely to every single part, making it all feel like one connected experience. Okay, so that's the strategy and that's the tech. But did it actually work? Well, the data from 2025 is pretty incredible. The numbers, frankly, they speak for themselves. Let's take a look. First off, just the sheer scope of the launch. They didn't just plan an ecosystem, they delivered the whole thing. That's 6 different branches all launched and fully working together in a single year. I mean, just from an execution standpoint, that is a monumental achievement. And they didn't stop there. The pace of development was just relentless. Across those brand new branches, the team pushed out over 400 new features. So this wasn't some static launch. They were constantly improving, constantly iterating, probably based on what users were telling them in real time. And right here is where you really see the impact of all that work. Over 750 new communities were built on the platform, and that's just in the second half of the year. This proves that people were adopting it, and fast. The SNAS model was clearly working. So what about the nuts and bolts holding this all together? The platform processed over 120 terabytes of data. For a minute, just let that number sink in. It's a testament to the massive scale of activity that they were now able to handle. And finally, the ultimate stress test. More than 1.3 billion, with a B, requests were handled by their servers. That number right there proves that the system wasn't just big, it was stable and could scale under a truly immense load. So when you pull back and look at it all together, the picture is crystal clear. 6 branches, over 400 features, explosive community growth, and an infrastructure that handled billions of requests without even breaking a sweat. Yeah, that is the anatomy of a powerhouse here.
But the source is very clear on this point. This wasn't just a story about technology. An achievement this big required a huge internal transformation too. The team itself had to evolve. And through that restructuring, they came out the other side with what they call a crystal clear vision. So after a year that can only be described as wild, what could possibly be next? The way the leadership team frames it is that 2025 was the year they built the foundation. So what exactly are they planning to build on top of it in 2026? And this slide lays out their shift in thinking perfectly. See, 2025 was about building the foundation. It was about chasing the lightning, capturing that initial creative spark. But 2026, that's all about unleashing potential and creating an explosive impact. The hard part is done. Now it's time to hit the accelerator. And you can really feel that confidence in their closing words. The excitement is palpable. This isn't a team that's kicking back and relaxing after a crazy year. No way. They are energized by it. They've built the engine, and now they're just dying to see how fast it can really go. Which leaves all of us with this one final thought. In just 1 year, Linkspreed built a whole new identity, a new ecosystem, and the tech to power it. The foundation is solid, so the only question that really matters now is how high are they going to build?